By the way, the people in the West didn't get the memo on global warming. It's going to get cold and colder, and the cold is coming east. It isn't here yet. It's warm here, but it's going to get colder, and the Midwest is snow and blizzards.
Yeah, they haven't felt this kind of cold out there in a long time.
Yeah, well, it's going to be. I mean, even L.A. in that area, I think they got snow. I don't know if the actual L.A., but out in the environments, they talk about snow. So anyhow, that'll give you skiing. And you know, the guy that wrote "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas" was sitting in a condo or a penthouse in Los Angeles writing that. I mean, you know, the whole thing, you know. But he got the message of holiday in Vermont.
Yes, well, a winter storm is causing temperatures to plunge as much as 40 degrees below normal in some places, and that cold weather is heading south soon. Charlene Israel has the story.
We're barely into December, but a powerful winter storm has the western half of the country bundling up this morning.
It's January-like cold, only it's early December.
About 24 states have winter watches or advisories. Northern Minnesota has already been slammed by 2 feet of snow.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
I was like saying, yeah, school's out. It's wicked, actually. I've never seen it like this before.
Idaho has already seen 30 inches fall, and across the Midwest, the snow and ice are causing treacherous conditions on the highways, with hundreds of accidents from Minnesota to Utah. Areas of Montana and the Dakotas were forecast to reach lows in the -20s. In California, farmers are working to protect their crops as temperatures dip near freezing.
We're worried about anything getting close to 32 or below.
We've got our crews ready, our water, our wind machines.
In Denver, Colorado, Tuesday's high reached 56 degrees. Only 4 hours later, it had dipped to the mid-20s. Another cold front following closely behind this one is forecast to cause the Arctic cold to linger. The forecasted high for Minneapolis on Friday is only 5 degrees. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Ooh, that sounds so cold, you know.
Yeah, I was in Pittsburgh for Thanksgiving, and they had snow on the ground the whole time I was there.
Really?
People had snowmen in their yards. I love snow.
Yeah,
I love it.
You know, I have a place up in the mountains of Hot Springs, Virginia, and I was over in Russia, in Moscow. They said, oh, it gets cold in Russia. I said, you ought to go to Hot Springs, Virginia. You don't know what cold is. -60 wind chill a couple of years ago. -60.
Wow, you could lose a nose. You could lose an ear.
Hot Springs, Virginia.
In Hot Springs?
What a joke. I was up on the mountain, but anyhow. Yeah. Okay. Well, the weather may be cold, but the president is heating up his chilly standing in the polls. I understand his has dipped to a very frigid 43 in Ohio. We'll have more on that story about what's happening. John Jessup, here he is from Washington.
Pat, the president has launched a campaign for damage control, promising not to let Obamacare be repealed while he's in the White House. The administration says the worst technical problems for the website are over, but as Heather Sells reports, it may not be the best time of the year to make that argument.
For Americans this week, the contrast is striking. Businesses are setting records daily, shipping millions of Christmas gifts and taking in billions online. At the same time, a crippled government website threatens to wreak havoc with Americans' ability to get health insurance. Many cannot help but take notice that while American businesses are demonstrating peak efficiencies online, the American government is demonstrating colossal incompetence via healthcare.gov. To combat the perception, the president has begun a PR push designed to highlight the benefits originally planned in the law.
Our poor execution in the first couple months on the website clouded the fact that there are a whole bunch of people who stand to benefit. Now that the website's working for the vast majority of people, we need to make sure that folks refocus on what's at stake here.
The president is hoping that more Americans will change their minds and sign up for government health insurance, but Republicans counter that it's too little, too late.
House Republicans are going to continue to listen to our constituents, listen to the American people, and try to focus on protecting them from a fundamentally flawed law.
One of the latest flaws to surface, a problem with enrollment data. Insurers say a lot of what they're receiving is useless. And that means some consumers may not be covered on January 1st, the day that coverage is scheduled to begin. It's another huge headache for the White House, so big, in fact, the administration is meeting daily with insurance reps just to discuss it. Heather Sells, CBN News.
The Obamacare mess has deeply hurt the president in the polls. A Quinnipiac University survey found him with a record low 34% approval rating in Ohio, with his disapproval rating hitting a record high of 61%. Pat, I think it's safe to say it's going to take a lot more than stumping to lift the president's approval ratings.
There was an opinion piece in Newsweek. They've stopped publishing the magazine, but they're now online. And this thing just raked him. He said, you know, the trouble is he's never managed anything, which is what we've said. He's in charge now of the biggest corporation in the world. And he has never managed anything ever in all of his life. And all he knows how to do is make speeches. And he makes the same speech as this campaign he made 4 years ago. He's got the same stuff out there. Well, when the folks find, he's got that folksy look now, the folks find out what's really good for them. The thing is a monstrosity, but he doesn't understand it. He doesn't know how to fix it. He didn't know how it got that way. And I had an expert with me on this program. He said it's absolutely certain that he never read the law. He didn't know what's in it, and yet he pushed it on the American people. What are we dealing with? Something has got to be done because there's a crisis looming ahead in our country. We're overregulated now, more regulations coming on, and now we're going to tell you about some noble efforts from the Chamber of Commerce to push back against some of this Obamacare, Obama disaster coming down upon the American industrial might. John?
Pat, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says it's going to use every resource at its disposal to fight the growing number of federal regulations. Chamber President Tom Donahue says the red tape has grown at an unprecedented rate under President Obama. The Hill newspaper reports Donahue warns the massive number of regulations amounts to a fourth branch of government. In a speech Tuesday, Donahue also said the government doesn't have any way to get rid of unnecessary rules on the books. A Christian legal group has filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of a 7th grader against her middle school in Bonner Springs, Kansas, because she was told she couldn't pass out flyers promoting the See You at the Poll prayer event for students. Alliance Defending Freedom says a counselor at the school violated the students' First Amendment rights to free speech and equal protection by stopping her from posting her flyers. The group says the counselor told her the flyers couldn't be posted because they contained religious material. The superintendent says the administrative staff wasn't notified of the problem and that the See You at the Poll was announced over the school intercom system. Pat?
There was an organization that I founded called the National Legal Foundation, and it went to court. The case in the Supreme Court was called Mergens versus West Side School District, and Jay Sekulow argued that case before the Supreme Court and won a 7-2 victory, with liberal Justice Brennan writing the decision. And in that decision, it was a clear-cut statement that students at schools did not lose their constitutional right, and that actions by students were not the same thing as the actions of a state. And young students, high school students, college students have an absolute right to express their Christian point of view and to join Bible clubs and do the rest of it. It was a major case. It's a major Supreme Court case. It is the prevailing law of the land. So for some teacher in some Kansas school to take away a little child's right to hand out flyers is outrageous. But the problem is they don't know the law. John?
Pat, turning overseas, both Christians and Jews are suffering growing persecution around the world. One Jewish leader says the two groups must stand together in the face of increasing violence. Chris Mitchell has the story from Jerusalem.
I will not be silent, and we will not be silent.
That's the message Ron Lauder, president of the World Jewish Congress, takes to Christians these days about Jewish support for persecuted Christians.
Silence is the biggest help to anti-Semitism or anti-Christianity. One of the things we've seen over and over again is that when you talk out and you fight back, people react.
Historians blame public apathy for helping lead to the horrors of World War II. The World Jewish Congress, founded in 1936, became the diplomatic arm for Jewish people worldwide.
We see the same recurrence we saw in the 1930s, and it's very scary. But there's also an anti-Christian feeling. We've seen it in the Middle East particularly, when churches are burned, when people are killed.
Lauder noted that some 450,000 Christians have fled Syria, and in Bethlehem, the Christian population has dropped from a high of 70% to around 15 to 20% today. He also told CBN News about two types of anti-Semitism growing in Europe today. The first masquerades as anti-Israel feeling, mainly stirred by Muslim populations in Western Europe. The second is pushed by extremists in Eastern Europe and elsewhere.
These extremes have to blame somebody for the problems, and they're blaming the Jewish people once again.
Lauder is viewed as the leader of the Jewish community worldwide. His background as a former senior Pentagon official and U.S. ambassador to Austria puts him in a unique position to speak to world leaders. In an unprecedented move, Lauder thanked thousands of Christians during September's Feast of Tabernacles celebration for their support for Israel.
Thank you for standing on the right side of history. Thank you for standing with God. And thank you for standing with us, the Jewish people. And lastly, thank you for standing here in Jerusalem, the eternal, undivided capital of the State of Israel.
David Parsons called the speech an historic moment in diaspora Jewish-Christian relations.
There aren't many prominent diaspora leaders who have done this in the way that he did, coming and openly and profusely thanking us for our support and actually saying, we want to partner with you. You've stood with us on Jerusalem. Guess what? We want to stand with you on the issue of the persecution of Christians in Muslim countries.
Every time something's done, be it to Jews or to Christians, it hurts us all. We must work together.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Turning to health news, you can forget about being fat but fit. A new study finds the idea that you can be overweight or even obese but still be healthy is wrong. Being fat but fit meant someone could carry those extra pounds but still have regular blood pressure and cholesterol. Now, the Canadian study says even if some overweight people don't have those problems, they still face a higher risk of death, strokes, or heart attacks than normal weight folks. Pat, interestingly, the study also said for people who have problems knocking off pounds, any physical activity like biking or swimming goes a really long way.
A long way, and it's so, you know, I'm getting to be a real fan of nuts and berries. They're so good for you. They've got phytochemicals that help take down that fat.
Yeah, I love almonds.
Yeah,
you're talking
they're the
about being
best.
fat and fit, though. I was watching football over the weekend, and you see these football players, and of course they're working out all the time. Some of them look obese.
Oh, well, those big linemen, I mean, the whole idea is for them to be big, so it takes a lot to move them.
Maybe that's different. Maybe they are fat and fit, but for the most people, you can't be fat and fit.
I tell you, no way. But you see those halfbacks and people like that, they're not paunchy. They're muscles like you can't believe. But all right.
The University of Notre Dame has filed a lawsuit over Obamacare's contraception mandate. The suit claims requiring the university to offer birth control as part of its insurance plan violates the institution's freedom of religion. The Catholic University also says the birth control mandate violates the church's teaching against contraception. The Supreme Court is currently considering two cases where business owners have objected on religious grounds to covering birth control for employees. Well, hundreds gathered in Washington to see the lighting of the Capitol Christmas tree. House Speaker John Boehner flipped the switch that lit the tree, helped by the 6-year-old son of an Iraq War veteran. Congressman Jim McDermott reminded the crowd that Christmas was about Jesus. He said he hoped the tree would help people remember his message to feed the hungry and take care of the sick. The U.S. Marine Band played "O Come All Ye Faithful" and other classic Christmas hymns. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN by going to our website at cbnnews.com.